Welcome back to Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shabnam Palesa Mohammed, and on this very special edition talking about the art of justice, our last segment, our guest is Carlos Amato, who is the editorial cartoonist for News 24 and the Mail and Guardian. Of course, his debut collection, This Is Wild, The Best of Carlos, is also out. I'm very happy to welcome Carlos into this conversation to talk about the role of artists in standing against war and genocide and for human rights and peace. Carlos, welcome to Salam Media.
Thank you, Shabnam. Thank you for having me.
Well, we've got 10 minutes together, so we've got to whiz through this conversation. I want to ask you the question that I asked Nanda Subin earlier on. As an artist, you could focus on only the aesthetic, but political cartoonists are different. They focus on the horrors and the hope and the human rights elements of what is happening in our world, whether it is nationally or internationally. Where does this motivation from your political cartooning come from?
Well, I'm an unusual cartoonist in that I was a journalist for a while, for 20 years as a writer before I became a cartoonist. So in a way, becoming a cartoonist was a kind of an escape from the hard realities of being a reporter. I did a bit of feature writing, a little bit of crime writing, and kind of encountered some tough stuff during that spell, and then sort of veered into arts writing, and eventually decided, no, I want to be a cartoonist because I've always loved the form, and I grew up loving Zapira and Derek Bauer and various other greats of South African cartooning. And for me, it's, my prime motivation was that I love the form as a fun medium. But in the process of learning how to do it over the past 8 years, I've discovered that one does have a duty to respond to traumatic realities. And in the last couple of years, that's been the case with the Gaza story, and it's been difficult. I'm half Jewish. I have received a lot of fierce responses from South African Jewish readers, and engaged in conversation about those, and not taken it, not run away from those conversations. And there are, of course, lots of South African Jews who are very aware of the horrors that the Israeli government is inflicting. So I'm not alone in that. And there was a kind of a moment early on where I was, really battling to confront and understand what was going on, and understand what had driven this state to this state. And cartooning, I think, has helped me to kind of process and not understand, but try to identify what the realities of the Israeli state are now. And
Absolutely. That is such valuable.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, I found that I've, in addition to thinking about everyone in Palestine who's suffering, I'm also thinking about the people in Israel who are dissenters, and there are many of them. And they are in a very difficult position as well. Obviously, utterly different in the gravity of the situation to Palestinians. But it is a tragedy that the state has betrayed its culture and its, the ethics of its intellectual tradition, its religious tradition, and perverted it in such a horrifying way.
And we draw a clear distinction between Judaism and Zionism. And of course, as South Africans, we recognize occupation and apartheid and now genocide. I particularly enjoy your style of cartooning. I mean, I've included you in a panel many years ago during the Corona era with Nanda and with Zapiro and Betuel Mangena, etc. And it was brilliant. What I particularly enjoy is your ability to point out the corporate profiteers in some of your work, whether I think it may have been, KPMG and maybe Bell Pottinger and others, which I think is quite rare. And I appreciate that very, very much. Let's have a look at some of your cartoons, and if you can just talk us through them as we cue them up, Carlos, and then I'll come back with another question for you at the end. Let's have a look at that first cartoon, please, Sadiq. This is the cover of your new collection. This is Wild, the best of Carlos. Talk us through this cover and this project. Congratulations again.
Thanks. Yeah, I just tried to pack in as much as I could, really. I wanted to have an action-packed image, but I couldn't decide what to include, so I just included most of the leading characters of the South African political scene, plus Elon Musk and a sort of robot missile Trump, just to add an extra element. Yeah, so it's coming out. Well, it's out already. It's in stores, and yeah, it's been fun to put together, and it feels so nice to have, the work I really enjoyed making in print and well reproduced. All the details come through. I'm really loving having it in my hand.
Super. Looking forward to having a look at that as well. Maybe we can host a launch in Durban. Who knows? Let's have a look at one of your other cartoons. All right, go ahead. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, this was fairly early on, a couple of months after the war began, and it just tried to sort of, itemize what the bombardment was doing. This is, Israeli military technology is famously sort of advanced. So in a way, it was sort of parodying this obsession with military know-how by just itemizing exactly how, aside from being a crime, a genocidal assault was also a crime against Israel and Israel's future and Israel's place in the world. And yeah, so this cartoon tried to capture that.
Yep, let's have a look at the next one, Sadiq, and I apologize for having to rush through this, but our producer doesn't need to be home. This one, go ahead.
Yeah, this was a bit later in 2024, and after Israeli bombs killed some Western aid workers, all of a sudden the Western powers got really serious about trying to speak up. This was after 30,000 Palestinians had already been killed. So it was a ridiculously overdue response. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at the next one. Go ahead.
Yeah, this one, as usual, whenever I draw cartoons which happen to include attacks on Putin, I get a lot of Putin fans attacking me. But I'm convinced of this, that these three countries, who are all three involved in a war at present, are deploying the same trick on their people, which is to use the pain of the past, real pain in all three cases, incredible suffering suffered by their people in decades past, and deploying it as a weapon to inflict similar suffering on others. And it's nothing new. It's not a profound insight or anything, but I just thought it needed to be said at this point that these three men and their military machines are all playing from the same playbook.
The playbook of the military industrial complex. Next one, please, Sadiq.
Yeah, this was when the case was brought before the ICJ by the South African government, and at that point it didn't seem that there wasn't much hope at that point of swaying the court or swaying the international community, and it turns out that it did, and that Netanyahu is a wanted man in The Hague. Not that it's doing him much damage in real terms, but it's an important victory for our lawyers who did an incredible job. And I just wanted to do a cartoon which saluted that moment.
And of course, using the what do you call it? An analogy, the needle in the haystack there, quite effectively.
Yes. Yeah.
And here's the last one for now. I wish we had time for more, but we'll have to get together again. Talk us through this one, please.
Yeah, this was at the point where Israel opened another front in Lebanon. And at that point, it seemed that, this was the beginning of, or this phase 2 of a war that would just go on forever. Thankfully, there's some hope that it's now going to end, but we'll see. But at that point, it just seemed utterly hopeless. So I just wanted to try to express how insane it was that 2 wars were being waged by one state.
At least, and the war is not meant to be won. The war is meant to be endless, and all wars are bankers' wars, as we know. So, Carlos, last question for you before we round up the show, and that is to say, what is the role of artists, in your perspective, in standing up against wars and standing up for human rights, for justice, and for peace?
Sure, it's a tough one. For cartoonists, it's I don't have much faith in the cartoon's ability to transcend ideological boundaries and convince people who disagree with you of your position. It just doesn't seem to happen. What it does is crystallize in the minds of people who do share your opinion or who are trying to decide. I mean, there's always a shifting population in any debate. So you try to reach those people, but they're not many. And you try to make statements for the record. Like, it's important to state things just for the sake of stating them, like recording. I mean, that is what journalism is. It's a record. And I have to salute my editors, both at the Mail and Guardian and at News 24, who have never blocked any cartoons about Gaza. I've never tried to soften anything, and that for me is a sign that we have a very strong role for cartoonists in this country, and for artists who are responding to the world. We have to respond, of course, to our own crises and our own traumas, and not be distracted from them. But that's what we have to do.
Absolutely. Well, as I'm fond of saying, the arts changes the world faster than politics can. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have a follow-up conversation. And again, congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. What an excellent show it's been here on Salam Media. And in conclusion, as our discussion comes to an end, we are left holding 2 powerful threads: the thread of legal principle and the thread of artistic testimony. We've seen that a UN report on the destruction of cultural heritage, for example, is given a human face through a painter's defiant portrait. We've seen how the legal concept of apartheid is animated and embodied in the narratives of filmmakers and playwrights. The law provides the what, the specific violations of legal standards. The art provides the why, the human cost, the stolen dreams, the unbreakable will. This is not an academic exercise. This is the fusion that creates a moral imperative. While the law gives us the tools to argue in the court of world opinion, art is what wins the case in the court of human hearts. So our task as we leave today is to carry both forward. Let the legal frameworks guide your advocacy, cite them, demand their enforcement, and let the art fuel your humanity. Share it, be moved by it, allow it to break and rebuild your understanding. Let's not see them as separate. The next time you read a legal analysis, remember the artist's brush. The next time you see a powerful image, remember the articles of law that it embodies. Thank you to all of our guests for illuminating this crucial synergy, and thank you to our audience for your engagement. Let's go forth armed with both the clarity of law and the fire of art. They are together an unstoppable force for justice. My name is Shabnam Palesa Mohammed and my co-pilot Sadiq signing off on Salam Media, Humanitarian Journalism. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.